On today's podcast, we have a dear friend of mine, legendary music publisher and songwriter mentor, author and speaker, Judy Stakee. She's responsible for signing and developing some of the most acclaimed artists, including Sheryl Crow, Katy Perry, Joy Williams, Julian Bonetta, and others. She's worked in publishing most of her entire career, and now she works as an independent songwriting consultant. You're going to hear all about the things we talked about with regards to songwriting. What is a song? Do you look for in a co-writer? How do you develop yourself as a songwriter? And everything that you need to know if this is going to be your professional career. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we sat down with legendary music publisher, songwriter mentor, author, and speaker Judy Stakee. She's responsible for signing and developing many of today's most acclaimed artists and songwriters, including Sheryl Crow, Katy Perry, Joy Williams, Julian Bonetta, and others. We discussed what is a song, how do you develop the art of co-writing, what's expected of songwriters in today's marketplace, and much, much more. You won't want to miss it. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey, Insiders, are you looking to take your music career to the next level? Then you need to know about the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 28 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Monthly, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in print, PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit them now at musicregistry.com and receive a 10% discount by using coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today, our featured interview is with a dear, dear friend of mine, Judy Stakee. Judy is I guess what you would call a songwriter whisperer, is how I'll describe her. I mean, that's what Judy does. She really understands the heart, the soul, and the nature of the songwriter and has devoted her entire life toward bringing out that level of creativity. We had a really interesting conversation. We went deep into things like the foundational elements that you need to be doing to nurture your songwriting. How do you develop as a writer? The art of co-writing and why that's so important. And then, what is expected today from music publishers, how that criteria has changed and what they expect from songwriters in the market today. So it's a great conversation with a great, great dear old friend. And I think you're going to find a lot of great insights and benefits out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought some of the other points that we covered, which I think would be interesting for our listeners to check out, are, what are the characteristics in defining a great song, talking about her songwriting retreat and workshops that she does, which I think are legendary, and music publishers and expecting that certain level of development. Is there, that's something that we've been talking and harping about on the show as well too, that there is no longer any artist development coming from the label side. They want you to do all that up front and front load that before they even get interested in you and want to even try to do business with you. So it's very interesting that we talked to her about that and that whole subject.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you bring that up because it's no different for labels than it is for publishers. They want you to have some kind of success, get a track, get it on somebody's record, have a single, and it's very difficult to do if you're not signed. So, how do you achieve that, catch-22, shall we say?
Exactly. So, Insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured interview with Judy Stakee.
Judy, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, of course.
You have a long history of mentoring and nurturing and developing songwriters. When did you know that music was going to be your career path?
Well, my mother says I came out of the womb singing and dancing.
Okay.
So I think it was predestined. actually. I mean, music has always been a part of my life. So I knew when I was in grade school that whatever I was going to do, it had to have music involved. I mean, I thought I was going to be a performer. I thought I would go off singing and dancing. And when I didn't follow that path, as I say, when I got out of college, there was no internet and and my parents really didn't have those connections. And so I went into the music business instead. But I still had something to do with music.
Judy, this is Eric. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you. Let me ask you, you worked for many music publishers throughout your career, Arista Music, Screen Gems, Warner Chappell. Who are some of the most notable songwriters that you signed or worked with during this time?
Well, at Arista Music, I signed a writer named Amanda McBroom, who wrote The Rose. And I worked with such notable writers as Henry Mancini and Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin. When I went to Screen Gems, I signed and worked with Scott Cutler, who this was before he wrote Piano in the Dark for Brenda Russell. He wrote, which he got a Grammy nomination for Best Song. He wrote Torn for Natalie Imbruglia. He wrote Listen for Beyonce. He's just had hit after hit after hit. So I signed him early on. I signed Rick Knowles, who wrote a lot of the Madonna Dido stuff. And then when I went to Warner Chappell, I signed, the list goes on, John Shanks, Kevin Kadish, Wayne Kirkpatrick, Jamie Houston. I worked with artists such as Sheryl Crow and Michelle Branch and Katy Perry and Joy Williams and Paul Freeman and Gavin DeGraw and a songwriter extraordinary, Julian Bonetta. So the list goes on and on. I was very lucky. I was very, very fortunate.
Yeah, it's an amazing roster of talent.
Yeah.
You had worked for 3 different publishers, and I'm just curious, what did that time with all of those publishers and working with all those writers, what did that teach you about the art of writing, about the art of songwriting? I mean, you must have picked up a lot of great information and skill sets during that period.
It's a great question, Ritch. I liken Arista Music to the mom and pop store in your neighborhood. It was 6,000 songs. It was very small. And it was my first job in the music industry. So I learned structure. I learned how a publishing company worked. I learned what a song plugger did. I learned how to listen to a song. My boss, Billy Michelle, rest in peace, he was an amazing teacher it's the technical, it's the structure, it's the how do you do meetings, how do you return phone calls, it was all the, you have to learn the basics before you can even do anything else. And then when I went to Screen Gems, it was like going to the Gap. It was like, it was a very mid-size. We had offices everywhere. We were like on every corner. It was just really, it was a lot more, there was a lot more employees. The catalog was now 100,000 songs. And we had studios at the offices on Sunset Boulevard. And we were up above EMI Records. This was an old building. So Screen Gems, the publishing company, was on top and the EMI was on the bottom. And they had a 48-track studio and we had a 24-track studio on our floor. And so the writers would come in and demo their songs. We had writers' rooms. We had, the Red Hot Chili Peppers downstairs recording. We had Sheena Easton recording. There was a lot of artists and writers within the building. At Arista, it was meetings. It was Clive Davis. It was marketing meetings. We didn't see, it wasn't a huge catalog and a huge roster. But at Screen Gems, it was like the kids were in charge. And so it was just all this writing all the time. Carole King, Jerry Goffin, Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil. And so I got to be involved in the process. I got to see how they wrote. I got to be in the studio. I got to be around the creative process. And that was amazing. I mean, it was just so saturating in everything that you did in that building. And then I went to Warner Chappell, and I was there for 20 years. And Warner Chappell was like going to Bloomingdale's. It was like going to Neiman Marcus. It was like I had now 1 million songs. There was, at the time when I went to Warner Chappell, there was no other competition. We were winning BMI and ASCAP Publisher of the Year for years because, we were above and beyond everybody else in size.
Yeah, you were the market leader.
We were the market, absolutely. And so at Warner Chappell, what was great is that I then combined all this technical and structure and how how to be an executive with how to be a publisher and a songwriter and that creative person, and how to talk to them, how to communicate with the songwriters, what the A&R people wanted, and how to write the songs that were going to be cut. So there was a lot of guiding, but I believe that the Arista Music and Screen Gems experience for me got me ready for Warner Chappell for 20 years. Because Warner Chappell was not a place to learn. Warner Chappell was a place to be.
Right. No. I totally get that. And, and it's funny because, you and I met when you were at Arista. I had come from A&M and you were at Arista with Linda Blum, Tom Sturgis, Billy Michelle, and then Chris Mancini.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember it very, very well.
Yeah.
You chose to leave music publishing. Why did you leave publishing in 2009, I believe?
I left, well, let me go back. Okay. Just the visual that I have is that I was in a very traditional music business. We grew up in traditional music business where you had, I liken it to a castle. You had the artist or the songwriter had to cross the moat, be invited in, and then they were signed into this Arista or Warner Brothers or A&M or whoever that company was, that castle was. But you couldn't really do it on your own. I mean, nobody could record music on their own. You had to go to a studio. You had to have help. Well, the internet changed all that. In 2005, our whole society went through a huge turmoil event, with 9/11 catching up to us, with the internet being all grown up. Our world completely changed. I mean, when you think of like what the car industry went through and the mortgage industry and the banking and what we went through in every industry, is that you had to go from analog to digital. You had to put every single piece of paper that you had ever written on into a computer, or nobody would get paid. That took manpower. There was, again, the 2005 right in there was a huge, huge difference. Well, the music business changed because now anybody could record at home. Anybody can record a song because Grey's Anatomy doesn't care what you look like as long as you have the song. My mother could write songs for Grey's Anatomy and nobody would care, But it split the whole world open, all right? There were no more, Warner Brothers is still a huge castle in my mind, and so is Sony. But other than that, like the four big castles, everybody else is, ground level. And what the visual I have now is that the music business is the Star Trek Enterprise. We are now in the futuristic event here, and the business is that Star Trek Enterprise where they market and they brand and they collect royalties, and everything is transparent, and it is a very well-run machine. But that leaves the rest of the universe for the industry. That leaves the rest of the universe for songwriters, for artists, for talent. And so anybody, like I said, my mother, who's 91, could be writing songs for Grey's Anatomy if she wanted to. Just gets a demo singer, gets somebody to produce her songs, and so it's not limiting to you have to have a deal. You have to be that good to cross a moat to get into it. Anybody can do it. So what happened with me is that it happened around 2005. I stayed for 3 years past when I probably made the decision that I was probably going to leave, but it was, it's setting groundwork. It was figuring out how I was going to do what I was going to do. But what happened was that because of how the business changed, it became all about business within the traditional music industry, and there was not a lot of room for development. And that's what I do. That's what I'm great at, is the development. You give me a beginning songwriter, and within a year, I can have them up and running. There's a language that I have created after all these years. There's a methodology that I have created. And to be trapped, and nothing against the companies, but I felt trapped in what I could do. There was no more money coming in. I was being scrutinized for every single little thing I did. And I understand how they had to take stock of the company and what was going on. But when you're developing somebody, it's like developing a first grader. I need a tuna fish sandwich and I need a coloring book. And other than that, it's like, just let me spend time with this person, because what a beginning writer artist needs is a really good mirror. They need a mirror so when they come up and go, what do you think? Do you like this? I can look at it and go, I really like this part. This part over here, this second verse, we need to work on, and let me show you why. Let me explain why it doesn't work and let's come up with some other language, some other words. But that takes time. But once you get them rolling, it's like getting somebody to, skip, a jump rope. It's like you get them in that rhythm. They're off and running,
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
but you need that time, and that's why I left, because I was trying to create a lot of, I was creating a lot of time and space for the development period, and I wasn't being allowed. It was more about, at the time they were, again, remember, at the time that I left, every company was cutting executives, was cutting writers. Writers were being dropped right and left because there was no more money. There was just no more money coming in. So, yeah.
This is a perfect segue into the next question. Judy, your work is based on two questions. What is a song and how do you develop? Can you address each of those?
Yes. I came up with a methodology after all these years so that I could simply explain to writers what they needed to put in place in order to get what they wanted. In order to create what you want to create, you have to have a process. You have to have time, space, and tools in order to make what you want to make. So if you were going to make a cake, you'd have to have a kitchen, you'd have to have an hour and a half, and you'd have to have a bowl and spoons and a mixer and chocolate and eggs and so forth and so on. Those would be your tools. So the time and space you have to put in place yourself. So if you're going to be a writer, then you have to have a space that you're going to write in that is comfortable for you, that you feel energetic in. And then you have to create the time. Every Thursday night from 6 to 9, we're going to have a co-write. The tools are what I give you. The tools is what is a song and how do you develop. So what is a song is I define the song as the voice, the lyric, and the melody, the integration of those three things. Those are three tools that you need to have to write for the rest of your life. You have to take care of your voice. And I'm talking about la, 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 that voice, the actual voice. If you want to be a singer, if you want to write for singers, it doesn't matter. You have to take care of your voice. If you're going to be a producer, you have to know about the voice. Your voice is so important, whether you're singing or talking. Because talking but the difference between singing and talking is just a little nuance. But when you talk in meetings, when you're talking to your lawyer, when you're talking to an A&R person, you're still using your voice. And so the more you know how to use it, the better. So when you're a songwriter, remember, you're a storyteller. So if you're going to tell a story and it's going to be, once upon a time there lived a princess. She lived in a castle and there was a moat around the castle and nobody could get to her. I'd be like bored out of my mind. But it'd be, once upon a time there lived a beautiful princess and she lived in this very, very, very tall castle. It was so high, I use my voice to tell the story. Well, that's really important when you're trying to convince somebody to use your song or when you're in a co-write or when you're singing. So the voice is very important. The lyric is your stories. So how do you become a great storyteller? Telling from your perspective. And remember, stories have to have a once upon a time something happened. So that's a lot of what I teach is how to tell a story in 200 words in 4 minutes, which is an approximate song. And then the integration of the melody, which is your emotions, realized through either singing or through an instrument. So the better singer you are, the better musician you are. I say it's just a lot easier to come up with melodies when you have that with you, with that skill. So it's the combination of the voice, the lyrics, and the melody that you have to really take care of each one of those. And when each one of those is strong, then your song can be strong. So when I'm critiquing a song, I look at the voice, I look at the story, and I look at the melody, and we go from there. Now, the kicker is, how do you develop? So we live in a three-dimensional world. So we experience this world by anything through our body, through our mind, and through our soul. So anything that we can touch, anything that we feel, and anything that we know. Well, if you want to change something in your life, you have to change something in your body, mind, and soul. If you were going to be an Olympic runner, then tomorrow, as your coach, I would say no more chocolate cake, and you're running 5 miles starting tomorrow. For your mind, if you want to go to the Olympics, then I've got 3 volumes of rules and regulations that you're going to have to memorize. And for your soul, well, your confidence has been a little shot lately, so we're going to have to either, get you to a therapist or put you on a retreat or, get you to some meditation, but, get something to going to get your confidence up. It's those 3 things that it's the same for songwriters. Your voice doesn't exist without your body. So if you don't take care of your body, your voice is not going to be to the, as well as it can be. Your mind is a computer that never shuts off. But your mind, with those with words, to find words for your lyrics, well, that's your mind. It's constantly educating and reading and learning new words and figuring out how best to put the words together. Putting lyrics together, writing a story is sort of a game. And so when you put your mind with the words, they work in tandem together. And then your soul is, that's you. It's the uniqueness of you. It's your perspective. The 3 of us could go see a movie, and each one of us will come out with a completely different perspective, and we all say the same thing. But that's the uniqueness of each one of us, is that we see things differently, and that's what I really push in with my songwriters is what do you see? What do you feel? But it's the combination. It's the soul and the melody that goes together, because the soul that the uniqueness of your perspective is told through your soul and the emotions and the melody. So it's those 6 rules: the voice, the voice, the lyric, and the melody, the body, the mind, and the soul. Those are the 6 foundational tools that I teach at my retreats, to my clients, to everything. I make sure that everybody is eating right, that everybody's taking care of themselves. If you're not doing that, all the other stuff doesn't work. It's learning how to tell a story. It's figuring out how to turn your brain off every now and then. It's like I have got one of my clients, my producer works up here at my house. I turned one of my rooms into a beautiful recording studio, and he has a tendency to go into the kitchen and eat at the kitchen, like just eat at the counter. And I'm constantly saying, sit down, take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes.
Right. No, it's so funny.
You have to take that time to go back into it, so.
No, it's
but
funny.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's about, and part of what you're talking about, Judy, a lot of these concepts is about consciousness. I mean, like when you were saying the thing about the producer at your home eating, I mean, I'm so guilty of that. You rush and you get the food and you eat it over the sink, rather than, sitting down at the table, which is right next to the sink, and having the meal, taking the time, becoming conscious, I want to expand on that. Or go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say one thing is that, I put on these retreats that I take a couple dozen writers away for 5 days, and I put them through the methodology. And at the end of the week, I stand up and I say to all of them, I want you to look at everything that you did in the last 5 days. And really, we got there Monday night, we leave Friday morning. So it's really 3 full days. You came and you met 2 dozen new people and bonded with them. You took 3 yoga classes. You took a voice lesson class. You wrote 3 songs. You performed those 3 songs. You had not over 9 hours of exercises and homework and education. You each got songs critiqued and learned about that. And you took 3 hours out of each day to eat. And they all go crazy about that. I'm like, you got all that done, and you took 3 hours. We did an hour for breakfast, an hour for lunch, and an hour for dinner. And during that time, you all got to come in and go, oh, how's your co-write going? How's yours doing? Oh, my God, this is so hard. Oh, I found it easy. They got to, throw it up and then go back in. And because they ate healthy, they had the energy to go from 8 in the morning to 9 at night every day, and still were energized. Like after we did the performances and we were at 9 o'clock, I'm like, I'm done. Good night. they stay up for a couple more hours because they're just so energized.
Right. Right. They're so jazzed about it. Judy, I want to
Right.
ask you, you have worked with, a lot of the great writers over the years, and you and I have had many conversations, and I can remember them, at Arista and throughout the years about the truly brilliant masters of songwriting. And I'm curious, are there personal characteristics or personal sensibilities that you feel the truly great writers possess?
That is a great question. Wow. Well, I think one thing, yes. The ability to tell stories, the ability to take words and craft them. I mean, there are writers out. Joy Williams, she's a lot of people. She's a solo artist, but she was also half of the Civil Wars. Wayne Kirkpatrick. He went from writing for years and years and years. He wrote "Change the World," and then he went off and wrote a Broadway musical, "Something's Rotten." So when you have somebody that can craft a lyric so incredible, Sheryl Crow. I mean, all I want to do
She's
is
amazing.
She's amazing. So. Yes, and those people are great conversationalists. I found that. The thing about Sheryl Crow that struck me from the first lunch that I had with her was the conversation. It was ping pong. It was back and forth. There was she listened and she reacted. She didn't just react. A lot of people would just talk and talk and talk. There was this flow of conversation that was just brilliant, and I find that with the writers that are that way. I also think that, the writers that have that, again, the amazing ability for musicality. Oh, at these retreats, when I have these writers, a couple dozen writers in front of me, and it's usually boys, but it's usually a couple boys that are they play the guitar like it's an extension of them. They know 162,000 chords, not just 4. They go from one thing to another. You ask them to play something and they're like, "Oh, I got it. I'll no problem." Again, when you have that ability, your playing field is bigger. That's it.
Yeah, your palette is
bigger.
larger.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Judy, how has the art of songwriting evolved over the last 10 years or so?
Well, it used to be lyrics and melody. That was a song.
Right.
And now it's the track, and it's the rap, and it's the 14 writers on something, and it's the collaboration, and it's a lot bigger than it was. It's a lot bigger than it was. And you know what? I think for the very reason is that I think songwriting was something that you never thought that you could do. I mean, it's probably true for a lot of things, up until the internet, you never thought you could do a lot of things. And there's a YouTube video for everything. You can do anything. But the media and television and YouTube has shown everybody that, anybody can write a song,
Yeah.
So I think that you've got a lot more styles involved. Within the traditional music industry, there weren't that many gatekeepers. There was a handful of gatekeepers, and they are the ones that produced that said this is the music that's coming out, and they would listen. Whoever listened to maybe Elvis Costello back then. I mean, somebody thought he was absolutely brilliant, but he was very different from what was going on. But now you have Elvis Costello and then some, it's like the playing field is a lot wider. So you're going to get a lot more different styles and crossing of styles, that the intersection of country and rap and R&B and, all of that is just crazy.
Hey, Insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured interview. Stay tuned because we've got so much more value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey, Ritch, you're the founder, CEO, legend of Music Business Registry. Tell us what the Music Business Registry is all about.
Well, what it's about, Eric, is it's a company that is designed to provide the most accurate and up-to-date contact information for the music business. So if someone is looking to reach the A&R community, if someone is looking to reach music publishers, if someone needs to reach artist managers, if someone needs to reach music attorneys, if someone's looking to place their music into film and television and needs to reach all the music supervisors, that's the contact information that we provide. We've been doing it for 28 years. We're sort of the industry standard, if you will, for the music business, and have been serving them since 1992. So that's what we do.
Amazing. So if I wanted to find out, let's say A&R people from Warner Brothers, let's say, I can just go in there and find that in the A&R registry?
Absolutely. You'll find all of the Warner Brothers in there. You'll find the Warner Brothers in LA, Warner Brothers in New York, Warner Brothers in Nashville, Warner Brothers in London, Warner Brothers, probably in Australia as well. So those are the main territories that we cover.
Amazing. And we're offering all of our insiders right now that are listening, if you visit musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount off your first order. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. Anything else you want to say, Ritch?
Well, when you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com. Yeah, and a lot of that is because people are not limited by their exposure anymore. I mean, the point you make about, country and rap, and I mean, look at the Little Nas X record. I mean, that's a perfect example and an illustration on a giant cultural level of exactly what you're saying. And Sam Hunt and several others. And it's interesting, as I was listening to you, I'm thinking, the gatekeepers, it's been commonly said that the good news for everybody is that there's no more gatekeepers. That's the good news. You want to know the bad news? There's no more gates.
There are no gatekeepers. Yeah,
there's no more gates, right. and because they've all been plowed down, and so the criteria becomes something totally different in today's day and age. Judy, let me ask you something. For new songwriters who are serious about building a career as a professional writer, what are some of the most foundational things you feel they need to be doing to nurture that in themselves?
For a young songwriter to become a songwriter, you mean?
Yeah, if they want to nurture that and they want to become pros, what are some of the more foundational things you think they need to be doing to nurture that art in themselves?
Well, in my opinion, they need to have a foundation. They need to know what's going on. And, I had throughout the years many writers who would come to me and say, well, I play the guitar, I wrote poetry in high school, and I can sing, so I'm a songwriter. And it's like, God bless you. And, that can work for many, like 1 out of 1,000 people. But for most people, it's like, go get some education. Go take a class, go take a retreat, go to Belmont, go to Berkeley, whatever you have to do at whatever stage. I have a lot of writers who come and take my retreat who are in their 30s, who are in their 40s. I get a lot of 50s too that, now they're at a place where they're going to go back and pursue the career that they gave up. There's nothing wrong with that. I've had some amazing 50-year-olds who are great songwriters, great musicians. They just they put it down for a while. So you have to go get some kind of base, some kind of education, some kind of knowledge of what you're doing, okay? And then you practice. There is no other secret to it, Ritch and Eric. You have to practice. You have to, it's like going skiing, all right? You go and you take lessons. You learn the plow. And then what do you have to do? You have to go down the hill. And then you have to go back up the hill and go down the hill. And you're going down the hill the rest of your life, perfecting these moves that you've been taught. Well, there's nothing more to skiing than practice. There's nothing more to songwriting than to practice. You will be practicing the rest of your life. Every time you write, you're practicing your writing. The trick to practicing is to have a great mirror in front of you. If you're a dancer and you're dancing, you dance with a mirror in front of you. With your songwriting, you got to have a mirror. That's why I believe Cheryl, it's interesting. I told the Sheryl Crow story not too long ago. I was interviewed for it. It's been a while since I told the whole story. And I was amazed when I said, oh, wait a minute, it only took a year. It only took a year from when she got off the road with Michael Jackson to when she got her deal and started her career. I mean, that took a year because every single day, practically every single day, I was there with her. And she was like, what do you think about this? And I'd be, I like this, I don't like that. What do you think about? And she'd go back. She was the A+ student because she would go back and go, okay, I fixed it. What do you think about it now? I fixed it again. What do you think about it now? It was just this constant student teacher, and she had that access to me. And that's what I think we miss about the music industry, is having all those mirrors. There's not those mirrors. And so it's what I tell my kids. It's like, look, come see me, come pay me. Absolutely, I can be your mirror, right? But if you can't do that, or, it's not feasible for whatever reason, go find yourself a mirror. Go find yourself another writer that you really, really trust, that that maybe went to a retreat, that you guys can bond, that you bonded together, that you can weekly trade each other's songs. And then once a month, come into me, but do the groundwork beforehand, but get yourself a mirror. That's my best advice.
Judy, can you take us through some of the things a songwriter who attends a retreat can expect?
Well, they can expect being with me the whole week. I'm teaching the whole week. They really get a sense. I immerse them in the process. What we do is we get there on a Monday night. We have a dinner. We have a writers in the round. Everyone gets to present a song. So we get to know them very quickly by the songs, the song they wrote. And then the next morning we start, and every day, all 3 days are the same. And that we start with yoga every morning from 8 to 9. We eat a breakfast from 9 to 10:30. I give them time to get dressed after yoga. And then from 10:30 to 1, it is exercises and education and videos. The first day is about body and voice. So I bring in a voice teacher who takes us through lessons for them to realize that their voice is more than just their voice, that there's other things that can do with it. And some of these kids have never taken voice lessons before. So, you're just exposing them to the power that they have with it. Then we eat lunch, and then they come back, and I do a little bit of a little speech thing. And then we go into co-writing. And then they co-write a song every day with 2 other writers. I put them in groups of 3. And they're given a prompt every day. Every day is designed to take them through a prompt, and there's a reason for every day. I'm not going to give that away, but there's a method to my madness. And then they stop that after. I only let them write for 3 hours. They have to get the song done in 3 hours, and then they come back and we do a critiquing session. Very, very important for them to know how to self-critique their songs. And so I critique their songs in front of everybody, and so everyone can learn how the language is and what to look for. And then we go to dinner for an hour, and then they get a little time to practice, and then we do performances from 8 to 9, and they get up and sing the song that they wrote that day, and we film them for them, we videotape them and stuff, and then to bed. So what they do is that they bond with their class. What's really great is that each class, the majority of them have really stayed together, and they write and they do things, and then now they're part of a bigger alumni. I've got 500 writers in my community that have all taken my class, and I've got another 100 that have taken an alumni retreat, and they all, I have writers in the rounds up at the house here. I do open mic nights, and so for the alumni, to bring them together, to keep them in communication and writing and helping each other. I believe that it takes a village to raise a child. So I created the village, and that we're here to help each other. So I encourage a lot of bartering, where, somebody will give somebody a guitar lesson if they'll do something for them, they'll help them on their marketing. So that's kind of what they can expect. They can expect a lot of education, a lot of, you're going to learn a lot about songwriting that's told from a different perspective. I'm not going to, we can go over structure if we need to, all that, but the writers, you have to apply to take it. So the writers that I choose are ones that know how to write a song. I actually do have a first step retreat that is for writers that may have not had as much practice and are much more at the beginning. I've got a first step retreat for that, but for the most part, it all starts with a song retreat. It's for those writers who kind of have a handle on things. So I get a lot of Belmont, I get a lot of Berkeley kids, I get a lot of NYU kids that are in the middle of their school.
Judy, as I'm listening to you talk about the retreat and throughout this interview, you've said one thing which I want to follow up with you on, which is that one of the main principles of your teaching is the art of co-writing. And I'm curious, why is that so important? Can you expound upon that?
I believe that writing a song solo is an art. And I believe, and there's quite a few writers out there that are brilliant at it. But for the most part, I believe that we all need someone to complete us. And where I'm weak, somebody else is strong. I think that there's strength in numbers. I think it's a wonderful, I think for the writing process, because it can be a very solitary thing, that co-writing promotes community. It promotes discussion. It promotes discussion on, well, did you go through the same thing when you broke up with your boyfriend? No, I went through something completely different. Really? What did you go through? It promotes the communication, and I think that's where the learning comes from. I think that's where the empathy comes from. I find there's great benefits to doing something with somebody instead of doing it alone. There's strength in both of them. But at the retreats, especially, I get a lot of writers who have done it alone and they've never co-written with somebody. And it's a big learning experience. It actually helps them when they go back and write by themselves. Because you have, again, you're writing in a room with two other mirrors. You've got mirrors there. So when you say something and they go, oh my God, that's brilliant, in your mind, you're like, oh, thank God they were here. I would have thrown that line away.
Exactly.
Or the opposite.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it, and I think it's great too. I mean, just me, because I am a writer as well too, that performs in a band and writes music. I think the beauty of writing with somebody, at least because I used to write alone a lot, but writing with somebody else expands your palette to the point where you just illustrated the point. There could be something that they played or something that they said, and you're like, wait a minute, what was that you would have never gotten before if you were by yourself, solitary? So to me, it's kind of, it is a mirror, and it's also giving you like more dimension to your writing, I think, which is fantastic.
Very well put. Very well put. Absolutely.
I want to switch gears with you here a minute and discuss some of the aspects of the marketplace. Are there opportunities for songwriters to get cuts in certain international markets that, perhaps don't exist for songwriters in the U.S.? I
believe so. I believe that, Japan is, with the K-pop and all that, I think that there's great opportunity there. I don't pitch, and I'm not as involved with international, but when I was at Warner Chappell, I know that, and I pitched internationally for years and years and years. Of course, England is a wonderful territory. So is Australia. Australia was they had a lot of pop slating on like pop country. I got lots of cuts in that territory. Yeah. I also believe that there's great opportunity here. I believe that a writer has to create their opportunity, though, instead of following it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I was just going to sort of, follow up on that in terms of like those opportunities is that one of the things that I see happening is sort of a higher level of expectation today. And I wondered, do you feel that music publishers today expect a certain level of development or prior success from new or unknown songwriters before they have serious interest in wanting to work with them?
Yes, absolutely. And it goes back to what I was saying before, is that there used to be a lot more executives and a lot more of me's in the music business. And that's not the case. They want writers that come in and have money already being generated. They do not want to take the chance on the development. There's a small percentage of writers that get signed at the very, very beginning now. Most writers have to go in with a resume, with money in the bank per se. Yeah. And it's interesting because I will give you an example, is that I've been developing and I've been managing a young writer producer. And of course, he wanted, I've been with him for 5 or 6 years now. And, when he was first out of college at 21, he wanted a publishing deal. It was like, no, you not yet. And it's like, you've got to write a lot of songs. And, he wrote song after song after song after song. And it was still like, I want a publishing deal. It's like, you're not there yet. You've written a lot of songs, but you've got to have a story to go into anybody. I said, I can't just go play some songs that are good. I've got to have a story with you. And it was, and he, put him with a lot of young artists. And he wrote with JoJo Siwa, who was on Dance Moms. And this was, 4 years ago. And he wrote a song called Boomerang and produced it and wrote it. And it's 750 million views on YouTube. Huge hit, which gave him an array into all these other kids. Well, he was, 23 years old. It was perfect. It was like, they'd been, all these kids had been put with the older writers in town and they weren't coming up with the stuff. And, Jordan was it was perfect, age range and all that. But it wasn't until, he had the Boomerang, he had another artist that he was developing. So he had great blueprints of these great masters that he was developing. And then he had songs that he had written for other artists. And when I when I finally, went and took him to publishers, we had a story. We had a story that, look, he's got a hit. He's collecting his money. He's doing everything he's supposed to. Here he's developing somebody. This is what he wants to do. He wants to produce and develop artists. And here's songs that he's written for other people. So he went in and it was, the publishers, I told them, I said, they're not going to give you a publishing deal on the spot. I said, but if they like you, and what they're going to do is that they're going to put you with their other writers. And that's what every single one of them did. They went, wait a minute, I want you to write with this person, this person, this person. So now, and then he went from there. So it's you have to have something going in. You can't just have a song. That's not how it works anymore. They need to know that you're going to make money. They need to know beforehand that you're going to show up, that you're going to do your job, and that every song is going to be a great song. They don't have time for you to fall down. They don't have time for you to, figure things out.
Yeah,
it's just not that world anymore.
It's like the analogy that you were giving before of your own career. Arista versus Screen Gems versus Warner Chappell,
Chappell.
And your whole development of, the small learning part, the, running it, and then the, like the Bloomingdale's, Neiman Marcus example where there was a certain level of expectation of you as a person, as a professional, as a creative, in terms of your experience, knowledge, and work ethic that you would have at Warner Chappell. That, and if you didn't have that, then that's not the environment for you.
Right, and that's what songwriters, if they want to be hit songwriters, there is a professionalism, there's a creative process, there's all of that you need. How are you going to have a career for the rest of your life if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't know how to tell a story, all of those things. If again, it's the body, mind, and the soul, the lyric, the melody, and the voice. You have to have a working knowledge of all of those things so you can have a career. How are you going to make it till 70,
Absolutely. Let me ask you, Judy, with so many of the changes that have occurred in songwriting as well as in music publishing, do you encourage your clients to educate themselves and learn as much as they can so they can protect themselves?
Oh, absolutely. The way I manage Jordan, my client Jordan Richmond, he does everything. When I manage him, I will consult and manage those things, but I don't take care of it. He's the one that gets on the phone with YouTube and makes sure that his everything is correct so that he's being paying correct. He's the one that's on with the. I'm on the conference calls with him, but he's conducting the business, and I've guided him to that because he has to know what his business is.
Exactly. That's great. And you're making them self-sufficient in the process.
Absolutely. If it's his business, he's got to make the decision.
Judy, I want to ask you a co-writing question on a professional level. Today, with so much emphasis on getting the single because of the nature of the business changing, is it your experience that this factor has affected who professional songwriters will collaborate with?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I have a good enough perspective for that. I know that everyone wants the single, but that's been for my entire career, everybody's wanted a single. I'm sure that's true for certain songwriters. I don't see it for every one of them, though.
What are your thoughts on some of the newer models like Cobalt and their offering of a suite of, non-traditional services, acting as an aggressive administrator without taking any ownership of the copyright? What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I hate to do this, but I don't know enough about it to really comment on it. I give them credit for doing something different, for trying things. I've always appreciated Cobalt for that, for thinking outside the box. I'm not sure all of that will work. I think time will tell,
Are there any books or films or videos that you can recommend that developing songwriters should be reading or watching, in your experience, to enhance a lot of the, points and values that you think are important?
It's interesting. In my book, I wrote a book called The Songwriter Survival Guide. After every chapter, I recommend a book. Derek Jensen wrote a book called Walking on Water, and it explains the intricacies of writing, teaching, and creativity that I just love. There's also the 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, I love that book. Robert Greene. That's an incredible book. Yeah,
all
all of his books are really
like
great.
A Bible.
Yeah.
And it explains the 48 rules of if you're, all the rules of business, like, keep your enemies close, your friends close.
Never outshine the master and all those. That's a brilliant book.
Right. So that's, in my chapter, You Are the CEO, that's what I recommend. In the chapter of demoing, there's a book of, this is the book that I recommend. It's right here. It is Modern Recording Techniques by David Miles Hubbard. So there's a lot of different kinds of books depending on what you need. I'm trying to think of the other one that I love. Well, there's From the Horse's Mouth, the Oxford Dictionary English Idioms. So it's great for lyrical inspiration. Yeah, just a few. Now, movies. One of my favorite movies to recommend is Music and Lyrics with Hugh Grant and Drew Barrymore. It is a great script, first of all, on the act of co-writing. Hugh Grant plays the Wham, Andrew Wrigley, the other half of Wham that never made it. And Drew Barrymore is a lyricist, and they're put together to write a song for the new Shakira of the moment. And it is brilliant. The dialogue is brilliant. The other one I love is Begin Again. Adam Moon 5.
And Keira Knightley and Adam Levine.
Knightley.
Yeah.
And Mark Ruffalo.
Ruffalo, right.
Yeah. Just wonderful movie. Those are my two favorites in recommending movies that way. I mean, there's also Autumn Rush. There's Across the Universe. As far as for inspiration, Begin Again and Music and Lyrics are my two favorites.
Absolutely. Great choices. Judy, How do people reach you if they're interested in working with you or in attending one of your retreats?
It's really easy. When I went to start my company, everyone was like, what are you going to name it? What are you going to name it? And I said, Judy Stakee. I spent over 40 years building up this name. So it's basically judystakee.com. Stakee.
Okay.
Beautiful. Great. So they just go to your website.
Just go to my website, and it's other retreats that I have. One in Canada coming up, 2 in California, 2 in Nashville, and then it's got all my door-to-doors, which are my videos of me interviewing various songwriters. Got my TED Talk up there. I did a TED Talk a couple of years ago on the benefits of putting songwriting into our
Yeah, I
system.
saw that. That was really great.
Thank you. And blogs and how to, if you want to consult with me, and
yeah, great. We're going to put that all in the show notes and everything and share that with everyone.
Along with your book and so forth, and the books that you recommended as well. Judy, what advice do you have for those who really want to develop a career as a songwriter?
Take no prisoners. It's like, if you really want this, then dedicate yourself. Like, put your mind to it. Put your mind, put your money, put your mouth, put everything into it if that's what you want. You cannot have this career if you do it half-assed, If you really, really, really want to be a songwriter, then you're going to have to work at it. And you have to have that mindset to work at it. and put in place whatever you need to put in place. What you need is completely different than what somebody else's needs, and that's figuring it out. What you need to get yourself to that point.
Yeah, making it the most. Yeah, it's funny. I always feel that if you want a career in anything, somebody once said to me that, the first rule is that it has to become the most important thing in your life. It can't just be, well, if this doesn't happen in a year, I'll go drive a truck because I can make more money driving a truck. It's like we are how did they put it? They said, if you want to know what someone's life is about, look at what they're committed to. That will tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah. I get a lot of, not a lot, but I get a certain amount of people who are, oh my God, your retreats are so expensive. And I'm like, for 5 days, I don't think they're that expensive. They're like, depending on if you get the early bird special or not, but they're $1,800 right in there for a week for, 3 yoga classes, all your meals, your boarding, a voice lesson, me, and I looked up the other day on the internet what it costs to become a doctor. $2.1 million. $2.1 million. If you want to become a chef, it can be anywhere from $40,000 to $160,000. And to become a songwriter, to spend a couple $1,000 maybe every year, or I'm thinking, wow, that's nothing.
Yeah, you have to invest in yourself.
The education.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, people don't realize that. Everybody thinks that this has got to be free, and no, it's not. It's definitely investing your money in the right places, not getting into scams and stuff like that. What you're offering is a full 360-degree immersive experience with writing and to become a better songwriter. So I totally agree.
Judy, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks so much.
This was really wonderful.
For you, anything.
Thank you. And it was a wonderful conversation.
I agree. Your questions were really, really good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I love Judy. I got to be honest with you. I love her, and I have known her she's probably one of my oldest friends in the business. I have known Judy since 1981, 82.
Wow.
I met her when I was at Arista. She was at Arista Music Publishing. I was at Arista A&R, and that's how we met. She was over in the publishing division. And I just remember, way back when we were, young kids, her love and her passion for songwriters and for writing. And, obviously, let's talk about the interview. So much incredibly great stuff from Judy. I loved when she talked about, the foundational elements that songwriters, if this is to be your profession, we're speaking now, if this is to be your profession, meaning you want to be a professional songwriter, you want to make your career and living doing, writing and nothing else. Not as a hobby, but this is a career.
Exactly.
Then you've got to know what's going on.
Right.
You've got to get educated.
Get educated.
You've got to practice. It's that whole thing of, the 10,000 hours.
Malcolm Gladwell's concept of the 10,000 hours of outliers.
Absolutely. It totally, applies. I remember in the recent documentary Shangri-La, where I think LL Cool J asks Rick Rubin, he says, what are some of the things that you can do to write better songs? And he said, just practice. And that's what Judy said. Just practice. Like, the more you do it,
get it better at it.
You're just going to get better and better. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, if you look at people, who have been at it a long time, you go through peaks and valleys, but it's just about staying with it. It's just about, staying with that.
And having the knowledge. And, she talked about her retreats and what they do there. And I thought it was great. And just evolving and being and having that great mirror. I also thought one of the other areas was co-writing, and why is it so important? I think this is absolutely crucial part, because, in this day and age, it's very rare to be a songwriter that you're just doing it on your own and getting really great stuff. You could have something good, but I have learned in my own personal journey that for me, co-writing has become something of such value, because you are getting that outside opinion, and it gets back to the whole idea of the strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly.
And knowing your limitations and knowing where somebody else can come in and complement that.
Yeah, and where you are strong.
Exactly.
And where you're not. And don't, as they say, a song is only as strong as its weakest link.
Exactly.
If you're not a great singer, don't sing your own songs. Don't sell them short. If you're not a great lyricist, don't insist on writing your own lyrics.
Exactly.
And vice versa.
And the whole idea about needing someone to complete them. And it's true. I mean, that person can be your yin to your yang and vice versa.
Yes, very true.
And the idea of that co-writing promotes discussion. I really liked what she talked about that, and then communication, and that you have the mirrors. We talk about, therapy. You talk about, that's the mirror talking to you. In this case, the mirrors are the other writers that are with you.
Yes.
And providing that.
And providing that empathy. And
exactly.
Did you go through that?
Exactly.
When your mother died, or when, whatever the situation, or the relationship broke up, or whatever it was.
Right.
And being able to learn in that interaction. That's a very, very important facet of it, I think, in terms of co-writing. And it's an interesting point because, when we look at songs today, even as opposed to like 30 years ago, songs today have an average of 4 to 6 writers, as opposed to 2 or 3. And there's a few different reasons for that, but there's all of that collaboration,
right.
to where things can really become like what you're talking about. A lot of mirrors there.
Exactly.
A lot of mirrors there.
Yeah. And then, as far as, educating yourself as an artist, as a writer, which, we had spoken about before, I thought Judy brought up a good point that, she's managing the artist, but she's letting the artist conduct the business, which I think is important in this day and age, because as an artist, if you don't know your business, you're lost. And in this day and age, you have to be well-rounded. And we talk about this whole holistic approach that we have here at MUBUTV that we're trying to introduce to everybody, that it's just not about writing the song and say, okay, you go do everything else. No, now it's, that's just the first part of the journey. Now it's, fitting all the other pieces of that puzzle.
Absolutely. I mean, the bottom line that I'm always telling writers and artists, this is your career. It's not my career. This is your career.
And I can't want it more than you.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to learn
exactly.
that this is an industry and a business that you're interested in. Now, I get it. It's not the sexiest or the most interesting part maybe to you, but you cannot be ignorant of it. Not if it's to be your profession.
Right.
If it's to be a hobby, that's a whole different discussion and a different podcast.
Yep.
Music can be a wonderful hobby, but if it's to be your career, if art and music are to be
a
your
way
career,
of life.
It has to be a way of life. And part of a way of life is that I know what I need to ask for when I get to the gig. I know what I need from a co-writer. I know, what publishing is. I know what a split is. I know these kinds of things. Not that I'm an expert, but that I'm in that conversation constantly. And what I don't know, I'm investigating and learning
Exactly,
about.
because I think the illusion is that they see the end result of being in this successful thing, and it's like, oh my God, this is so glad. And it's, guys, it's an industry like everything else, and it's a job like anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, and I've heard even, the biggest stars, Keith Richards often used to say, thank God for Mick Jagger, because he said, there were periods in my life where I think I would have been completely destitute had, someone not been taking the reins and running the business. And, he essentially is the manager for the Stones. I mean, he runs all, and he learned all of that stuff very, very early about tours and about splits and about management and about publishing and about owning your own recordings. And, I mean, I'm sure.
God, if anybody knows about owning their recordings, I mean, just that whole experience with the APCO and everything.
And they were the first ones to ever be a big group to ever do that, or one of the first.
Right.
And that just wasn't done in that era.
Exactly.
But he investigated and learned enough to where
he knew that was a value.
That, our recordings that we're going to make, and I'm happy when I see more and more artists, doing that today.
Exactly.
Because that's important.
And then the final point was about advice. And I thought, hers were great. The points about taking no prisoners and to dedicate yourself, commitment, and to work at it. The whole thing is just continuously doing this day in and day out. You're only going to get better the more time you put into this.
Absolutely. And, it's your profession. I love that line when she says, find out what it is you need. Because what you need may be different from what your co-writer needs or what other band members need.
Exactly.
Or what, an associate needs. Find out what you need. This is your career, and you got to learn and make it your own.
Hey Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at mubutv.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show over at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome, welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes in our space. You can also find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Insider Video Series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. This show would not be here if it weren't for our amazing team, which are the following: interview editors Sarah Nissenbaum and Alex Taylor. Show notes and transcriptions by Jani Chang, Nicole Capodoglo, Lilia Owens, and Sarah Nissenbaum. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast.